What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. The Steelers have a old kind of new defense coordinator, Patrick Graham, jumping on here really to just come kick it, answer any questions that you guys might have. We've done a bunch of these live streams recently, and I've actually really enjoyed it. I've had a lot of fun getting to interact with everybody. So the one thing I will say is that the past couple of live streams that we've done, I haven't done a very good job keeping up with the comments, mainly because I have started off these live streams kind of with a bunch of rambling. Shocker considering how I like to talk. So I'm not actually going to do that. I'll talk briefly and just give everybody some updates on the coaching staff hires, what we're looking at there. But other than that, I'm just going to take all of your all's questions, like whatever you guys want to talk about. We'll talk about whether it's the coaching staff, whether it's NFL draft, Steelers stuff. But just real quick, just like what's been confirmed. And there is a tracker on SteelersNow.com. You guys can go look at this. I'll place the link in the chat really quick for you guys if y'all want to have it up. Still looking for an offensive coordinator. I have not heard anything about that, what that looks like. They've obviously interviewed a couple of people. Linda Wells from Dallas is somebody that's name's been thrown out there. Of course, Scott Tolzien was thrown out there yesterday. Offensive coordinator still kind of in flux a little bit. Tom Arth coming back to the Steelers. He's one of three returning coaches. They hired Ramon Chinyong to coach Ramon Chinyong to coach the running backs. Adam Henry, previously with the Bills. A lot of ties to like Odell Beckham dating back to their LSU days as the receivers coach. James Campen, a longtime Green Bay Packers offensive line coach. I think like everybody's like favorite human being to ever walk the planet is coming over. A lot of ties to McCarthy, of course, Aaron Rodgers as well. Kind of cool news last night that kind of broke was that the Steelers are hiring Jari Evans, who's been kind of a intern, offensive assistant offensive line coach with the Saints over the past several years. So that's cool. Evans is it kind of makes me feel old a little bit because he was like one of the best guards I felt like of his generation. I actually not that I was paying a ton of attention to offensive line play when I was younger, but I always liked grabbing him, scooping him up on Madden. So that was kind of a cool thing for me. Defensive side of the ball, Gerald Alexander's coming back to coach the secondary. I'm really excited about that. If you're a long time like follower, subscriber, or anything like that, you guys know how I feel about Gerald Alexander. I think he's a really good teacher. Based on my conversations with people that have like been around him, played for him, they all have nothing but a ton of respect for him. And I've always liked following Gerald, just like throughout his journey, listening to the way that he sees ball. I'm very cornerback pilled. You guys probably all know that, but I'm very into the nuances of that specific position. And he and I view it very similarly. So I like GA. I'm excited that he's back. Scott McCurley is back as linebackers coach. He has ties to McCarthy's dating back to their Green Bay days. And I think that he was with him at some point in Dallas as well. Jason Simmons is the guy that was with McCarthy in Green Bay over the handful of seasons. Excuse me. But he's coming over. He spent the last couple of years in Washington. And then, of course, Patrick Graham, which a lot of you guys saw probably right before we jumped on, that he is the new defensive coordinator of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So now that we got all the housekeeping stuff in kind of all of our ducks in a row there, what do you guys want to talk about? I'm going to probably stream on here for about 30 to 45 minutes or until like my dinner gets here when my wife gets home. So we can talk about whatever you guys want. Start dropping questions in the chat. We'll kind of roll this thing wherever you guys want to take it. But I appreciate you jumping on here with me. We got over 100 of our closest friends and family with us right now. If you guys could do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, make sure you got those notifications on, all that stuff is greatly appreciated on my end. See a lot of familiar faces. We got some new members. I appreciate that, guys. Just as a reminder, like if you're a new member to the channel, if you're an all-pro member, which is just like $4 a month, no long-term commitment, you get access to a ton of exclusive stuff that I do, additional content beyond like what's the public-facing stuff that I do. The Ends No Ball pod that John Leder did not do at least once a week. We've been podding like twice a week with all the coaching stuff that's been going on, and then obviously, the film room type of stuff that I can no longer put on the public facing stuff as much as I really want to. So tons of content behind there. If you guys want to try it, like I said, it's cheap, free, easy, whatever for you. But like the stream, appreciate it. Thank you very much. Let's start to get into some questions. Thank you so much, Terry. I don't know about that, but I do try. But I feel like I do have the best community in the business. Would trade all of you guys for the world. So how do you feel about Keontae Scott round 2, moving Jalen to safety full time? So I think this is a kind of a two-sided question, right? Which is what the Steelers want to do with Jalen Ramsey with this contract. I'm pretty sure that, they don't really gain a lot of financial flexibility from like moving on to Jalen. The thing about that is what kind of defense, what style of defense is Graham going to employ? Like one of the things about Graham's defense is that he's very scheme agnostic. So it changes year to year. So it's difficult for me to even tell you like expect X, Y, and Z the way that I could do that with McCarthy's offense, because it does change so much based on the personnel that he's working with and everything like that. But how he views Jalen is going to be very telling to me, like what position he plays. I think if he's going to move to safety, potentially a full offseason to work at that, get the details down of that could be beneficial. I also would say that like when he was at safety, I just don't think there were enough like splash plays, and I don't think it came as naturally as maybe I was anticipating it coming for him. So we'll just have to see. And then the price tag is, it's an expensive contract that, they're just now getting into. So as far as Keontae Scott, I like Keontae Scott as a player. I think that he will probably come off the board somewhere round 2. A couple of things I like about Scott. One, like he's heavily involved in their pressure game at Miami. He's the nickel cornerback for the Miami Hurricanes, draft eligible. Was supposed to be at the Senior Bowl, but ended up backing out. But of course, he had a long season, so that's kind of like a lot of the late dropouts for the All-Star circuit are typically guys like that. But Scott, good run defender, very opportunistic player, kind of a feisty, undersized corner. The man coverage stuff kind of comes and goes a little bit. I don't know that it's as consistent or as sticky as you would want, like or see like the top guys in the league. But he is somebody that I would say. They'll probably, depending on what it is, look at it. I mean, he's not the same player as like a guy like Nate Hobbs, but Hobbs had a lot of success with Graham when they were together in Vegas. And he got Hobbs paid. Then, Green Bay thought that they could play him outside. And that was, it ended up being one of the worst contracts, I think, of free agency last year. He didn't play well this year. I don't know what they're going to do moving forward, but appreciate you signing up, Cody. Thank you very much. What's good, Steven? Steven, I saw your super chat that you dropped on a previous video. Let me go look at that real quick, which was kind of crazy because I think you dropped a $10 super chat. Okay. Yeah. So Steven asked, could you please give me your opinion on Ty Simpson? Is he just another Kenny Pickett who might he compare with? I don't think I understand why people are going to talk about him maybe in the same regard as Pickett, because he's not like a universally regarded like first round pick. This is also like a similarly bad class. I mean, I definitely like Mendoza better than any of the guys I scouted in 2022, where I was just begging the Steelers, like, please do not take this guy. To me personally, Simpson's a guy that had, when I did my midseason rankings, I kind of had him in that like late second round category, to where I would want to be taking him in that range, or maybe like early day 2, kind of around like the Tyler Shuck area. But sometimes like those guys get pushed into the late first round pick. At 21, I don't think it's nearly as egregious as the Pickett thing was, for a couple of reasons. One, Simpson's work inside the pocket in the first half of this season was really, really good and better than I thought Pickett's work in structure was, especially when it comes to like anticipation, layering the ball to the second level of the field. We talk a lot on the podcast about being able to hit the intermediate parts. Simpson does that fantastic. I really liked his fit in like a McVay style system where you're hitting a lot of end breakers and things like that. And I do think for a first year starter, he handled the command of the offense really well. But the thing is, like, the second half of the season didn't go very well. He was clearly limited in terms of his physical, the physical element of it. He was dealing with some injuries. I don't think he was nearly as consistent in the pocket or outside the pocket. I don't think he's got like overwhelming physical tools either. But, you're talking about a one-year starter. And like one of the things that I kind of I said to myself was that after the Anthony Richardson experience, I thought Richardson was not as raw as people thought he was coming out of Florida. I told myself that unless a prospect was just like unbelievable, I was never going to bet on another like one-year starter, just because I think the NFL has such a short fuse with these guys, how difficult the transition is. I just want somebody with more experience. I wanted Simpson to go back to school for that reason. He ended up coming out. It'll probably work out for him financially. Will it work out for him long term wise? I'm not sure. Those are decisions that all of these guys really had to make, similar to Dante Moore, who kind of chose the inverse. So to answer your question, he's not another Kenny Pickett, totally different style quarterback, to be honest with you. But he would be somebody that I would want to be very interested in getting like on day 2. I think 21 would be a reach. I think the idea of like trading up for a player like that would just be a risk that I personally would not want to take, especially I know next year's quarterback class, like everybody always makes fun of it. Like next year's class is always so good, but like next year's class is going to be better. So that's just something I would take out of it. Said DK getting out of the van. Yeah. Job's always good, man. Anytime I'm on the pod though, we always go super long just because, I like to talk, and having 3 people just kind of goes along. How effing inside? How did you know? Assuming you're talking about the Graham thing. Yeah, the Graham thing was strange that it took that long. I would say someone asked me on a comment on a previous video how like why it took so long to become official. You'll have to understand that technically by the NFL rules, they have to interview 2 minority candidates for head coach, offensive coordinator, and defensive coordinator. So you got to take those things into account. Jason Simmons didn't come in until yesterday, I believe, the day before. And then Graham was who McCarthy wanted, like, when he got the job. So, like, that was a known thing that he was going to want to bring him over. I did not know that, like, after he was hired initially, but found out, I think it was Monday or something like that, that was going to be the case. And it really just so happened that, I was talking about it as a possibility on the podcast, and somebody, hit me up close to the building and just said, yeah, you're right. That's what it's going to be. So, but yeah, there were other ways that they probably could have went with the defensive coordinator thing, depending on like the philosophy that you wanted. Of course, a guy like Jim Leonard would have interested me if you could get him away from where he's at. I'd have been interested in that. Raheem Morris is a guy like, very, very valuable, maybe more so for like a younger offensive coach or younger head coach that I think would be good. Morris is another guy who's had decent, like had some good stretches with not so great talent. I just respect his, ability as a leader too. So I would have been interested in that. Graham kind of up there in the similar thing. I do think that Graham, like if he's given like any ounce of talent, I think you can get a top 10 defense out of him. I know the resume looks what it looks like, but the talent that he's been given to work with has been pretty atrocious. I mean, even beyond like the talent of it, he's just had so many unfortunate breaks, man. Like you just go year by year, like Chandler Jones, they get him in 2023. They have like the best defense that the Raiders have had in 2 decades, but Jones just decides he doesn't want to play football anymore. The next year, Christian Wilkins like plays the first month of the season, gets hurt, doesn't come back. And then like next thing you know, he's like off the team when Pete Carroll gets there. And then this past year, like he's running Pete Carroll's defense. So yeah, it's been tough. I understand the results are what they are, and like fans are, going to judge on that. But I'm in Chipotle missing out SMH. Well, the good thing is if you do miss out on the live streams, you can always go back and watch them. To be honest with you, I probably don't go back and watch live streams very often. So I don't know if they are like viewer friendly like that. I always try to make it a point to like when I'm answering a question, at least throw it up on the screen for that reason. But DK, Alec Pierce, KC Concepcion. Well, I can tell you, is it Alec? I can tell you we're on the same page in terms of addressing the receiver room with quite a bit of aggressiveness. That's something I'm writing about right now for Steelers.com. Just being aggressive, like, not only do they need a 1A or 1B type of receiver, like they need depth. Like you just look at their depth chart, like even Calvin Austin's a free agent. They need bodies, and you need guys that can win on the perimeter one-on-one bucket. You need another bucket getter for sure. So I think addressing it in free agency and the draft, like double dipping is a good idea that you're talking about. Pierce is kind of interesting because like he is for the most part like an X receiver, but I will say this, he showed more last year as a route runner. I even thought, he had some good moments in the Steelers game. Maybe that didn't show up in the stat sheet. Pierce is a good player, though. I think he's going to get overpaid in free agency just because, like, he's probably the best one out there that's not going to get franchise tag Pickens. We've talked a lot about Concepcion, but I'm not really sure of how McCarthy would feel about him. One thing I would say about McCarthy that I've talked a decent amount about is, like, in the receiver room, well, he talked about in his press conference too about like he values like flexibility, like alignment flexibility too. So he wants guys that can move around the formation, like play on the slot, play on the boundary, flanker, those types of things. So I think when you're looking at receiver prospects, I don't really, I would probably be more interested in guys that have the ability to play multiple spots, um, especially because they already have this heavy investment in DK, who's like, I think of DK as probably somebody who's just going to be like an X receiver for you. Now, that conversation is, we don't know how that went, like through the interview process. Like, you can guarantee that, like, McCarthy was asked, like, not just about like how you gonna fix quarterback issues, how are you going to utilize DK Metcalf? So, like, during the interview process, like, these questions are going to come up about, especially when the GM is involved in the interview process, which Omar Khan was. The questions are going to be heavily revolved around guys that they've invested in recently. So probably going to get a lot of questions on how do you plan on maximizing DK Metcalf as our number one wide receiver that we just gave top 5 money? How are you going to plan on getting TJ Watt back on track? Those types of things. Those are going to be critical answers along with the quarterback discussion. So long-winded answer, but see, I see we got, oh my gosh, no question. I appreciate the super chat, man, but you should have dropped a question in here just so I could get something that you kind of wanted to hear me talk about. But I do appreciate the super chat. Thank you guys very much for everybody tapping in with me. Let's just make sure I'm not missing anything. Chris, or somebody said DK Dobbs, Concepcion. I mean, that would definitely be something too. Dobbs is another guy that's out there. Dobbs is a guy who like can get open on his own. Like, he's really steady across the board. Like, I don't think he does anything exceptionally well aside from maybe like, I wouldn't even say like he's exceptional in this regard, but like, I don't know if he does anything above like a B level, but he's pretty well rounded where he's not going to like limit you in any particular way too. And like, he will block and do things like that too. So Dobbs would be someone that I would be interested in. It has a little bit of familiarity with Aaron if they do choose to go that route as well. I feel like DB is going to like the coordinator hire. I'm definitely higher on the coordinator hire than probably the majority of fans are, just because of the reasons I mentioned. Like, I think it's just in our nature to look at it from a results-based standpoint. The results under Graham haven't been great or good enough. I acknowledge that. I think there's necessary context with that. And just, the way that he sees defense is a lot of the way that I think defense is best played right now in the NFL. Heavy disguise based, being a week by week team in terms of being able to pivot, game plan specific, less rooted in the ideology of this is what we do, this is how we win. I just think there are better ways to do it in the NFL right now. I think you can kind of see that with the best teams, the way that they're kind of viewing it as well. I think Graham views it like that. I think there's definitely some things that he'll have to clean up. But his defenses do prevent explosive plays, which is good. I would like to see more splash in terms of like backfield disruption, sacks, pressures, turnovers. Those things have to improve. But I think that you give him more talent, more one-on-one winners up front, which he will have in this defense, as opposed to like what he was working with in Vegas. I'm optimistic that that'll be something that they look at. So okay. I'm already falling behind on the comments. Y'all got to keep me on track. If I start to rant, y'all got to stop ranting in the comments so I can see it, or start yelling at me or whatever. But what do you think of Dylan Thieneman, safety from Oregon? He's might have an inside track on some tickets. That's pretty dope. I mean, definitely having a connection like that is would be pretty sick. I like Thieneman. He was somebody that was on my radar over the summer because he's a Purdue transfer, I believe. But a lot of versatility. I think he could do a lot of different things for you. The Purdue tape was more like man heavy scheme where he was just kind of playing like free safety, but a ton of like range, I would say, on the back end in terms of being able to, cover a lot of ground, the playmaking and things like that. I do think that he plays like the flats well too. So like whenever you do ask him to kind of spin down and work towards the line of scrimmage, whether it be flat screens, perimeter run game, like he does that stuff. I think he processes the game like a pro. Those would kind of be my early impressions. I haven't watched like him specifically since like the midpoint of the season probably, but those were my initial thoughts. I watched a lot of his game like live. The questions I would be is like, just he's not like the biggest guy. I don't necessarily think that size is like an issue. It would just be a lot about, is he going to be, how would you want to use him? Is he from I think he could play free safety. I think he could play in like on a half turn as well. Don't think playing him in the box a ton is something that I'd want to get into. Like, what does the man coverage stuff look like? From what I saw, there wasn't a ton of like pure like one-on-one man coverage reps where he was just like pressing guys out of the slot. I do think that if you have a safety that can do that, it does a lot for you for sure. But those are my thoughts on Thieneman. Going to move up in the first to secure Makai Lemon. Yeah, Lemon was one of my absolute guys coming out of summer. Still super high on him. I don't think he's relegated to slot duty at the next level. I think he can be a flanker for you. So I'm gonna be pretty high on Lemon. I think pretty much everybody is high on Lemon now, though, for sure. How do you like Sam Rush's day 3 pick to replace Jonnu? I saw you ask me this question on Twitter or a previous stream. I put his name on my list of players that I want to watch, like recommendations in my notes in my phone. I haven't got to him though, so I can't say that. What I will say is like any of the 180 of you in the chat that want to come play for the Steelers, I would let you play over Jonnu next year. Under no circumstance can he be back on the team. Daniel, what's good, man? I appreciate you hopping in with us. What are some realistic scenarios for round 1 for the Steelers? Some mock drafts. Yeah, I mean, Concepcion is a realistic option for sure. I think, receiver is going to be a popular talking point. I'm sure you guys are probably very familiar with Daniel Jeremiah's work, but he just put out like his first round top 50. And I always think DJ is one of the most I do think he's a good evaluator for sure. I also think a lot of what he puts out in terms of his rankings seem to me very in line with how the league views players. And he had 11 receivers in his top 50. So that kind of tells you like it is a strength of the draft class. And something that, it's a huge need for the Steelers. And I just don't think, I know Omar Khan is like unapologetically ignored the position for 2 years in a row. I just don't think Mike McCarthy's going to allow him to do that. Like this offense will not work if they do not like infuse a ton of talent on the perimeter. Like it's just not going to work. So DB, what kind of expectations should I have? Looks like there's a lot of hype around the hires. Am I in a playoff game? Am I dreaming? I mean, I think it's just one of those things for me, Nick. I don't want to tell you how to shape your own expectations. For me personally, I don't know that they've done anything now that tells me that they're on any type of direction different than how they ended last season. Still need to find a way to get a quarterback. That's going to be the number one thing too. I'm probably the McCarthy hire. I've already talked about that extensively. I thought it was like a high floor, kind of low ceiling hire. Some of the guys that he's brought in with the coaching staff we talked about earlier, I think I am intrigued by for sure. But the one thing I will say is like I was kind of hoping for like someone, whether it's a OC, whether it's an offensive line coach, a run game coordinator, somebody to come in and kind of help with the under center stuff to kind of give you a little bit more modernization there, because I think the passing game, like McCarthy, I mean, it kind of is what it is. Like, it's going to be very old school, traditional West Coast. And I'm not sure that anyone's coming in and changing his mind there, but, maybe get somebody with new ideas to kind of help blend some of the under center stuff with the play action world. I think could benefit him and kind of give his offense a little bit more easy buttons and like make it not so hard on the quarterback, whoever that ends up being. But I think your expectations, Nick, really, what I would say is like I'm taking this thing as like almost like a 2 to 3 year kind of window. If it's Rodgers comes back, my expectations are going to be pretty low, probably in comparison to a lot of like the fan base. That's just my opinion. But yeah, I'm very hopeful they can get back to winning playoff games, though, man. It really sucks, not having like meaningful football to talk about in January. Who would you like to see the Steelers target a wide receiver in free agency? I mean, we've kind of already brought up like a couple of the names. I mean, guys that I think are like good players. I would also throw like Juan Jennings in there, maybe as like if you wanted a dirty work player. I don't know that. I don't really know that McCarthy's ever had a player like Jennings. But I've always been a fan, and I think that his value could be maybe a little bit down this year because like his overall production wasn't crazy. Do you have an OC that you would want them to hire? I haven't really spent a ton of time thinking about the OC thing, man, just because like McCarthy's, it's going to be his offense. He's the play caller. I just mentioned like the new ideas thing as like kind of my viewpoint of like what the offense could be potentially missing. Like a guy that, like, for example, somebody that I'm talking about would be like Tanner Engstrand for the Jets. I thought the run game last year for the Jets was like pretty cool. I thought they did some cool stuff. They had probably the worst quarterback situation in the league, arguably. So like, I know that things didn't work out there. He had a really like I think Aaron Glenn probably going to get fired if I had to guess, like 6 weeks into next season. Bad situation, but he has a lot of experience. Like he worked with Ben Johnson for I think like 3 to 4 years as like his like pass. I want to say like maybe pass game coordinator. Um, but I just think, and I look at Ben Johnson's offense. I just ordered Bobby Peters' book about the 2025 Bears offense manual. I'm really excited about reading that and just I study Ben Johnson every single year. I think that the way that he views offensive football in terms of like getting under center, the run game, being downhill, getting vertical shots and pushing the ball deeper down the field off play action to expose the second level defenders, just very much in line with like the way that I view football. So I think that hiring from guys that have worked with him or from that tree would be a good thing, especially if it's, he's looking to get on his feet, back on his feet again, because he's probably not going to have an opportunity to call plays given the way that he was let go later in the cycle. But kind of a rant, but only part of the way through the pod. What do you think about Patrick's personnel usage? Will be crying to get Herbig on the field? Well, thank you for watching the pod already. You're on the ball because I just posted that like an hour and a half ago. The personnel usage thing, I think when Graham's at his best, I think this is my opinion, I think he would like to live in like a lighter-ish box world and nickel. That's the way I would think he would want to play. Now, the other thing with Herbig is like he's never had a player like Herbig, in my opinion. Like a guy that can rush from all over the place, kind of this like dynamic DPR type. I don't think he's ever had a player like that could be moved the way he can. He did a lot of movement things with like Max Crosby, and like that's kind of like really cool stuff and encouraging of the creativity of like ways that he would try to free up Crosby, knowing that he didn't have like a ton of talent elsewhere, but like he would use Crosby's kind of gravity to free up guys. Expecting a lot of like twists and stunts, which I think like Herbig, like the way like his lower body bend and flexibility and speed, closing speed, burst, all those things like match up well with what he could do. So I think for me, and this is probably one of the reasons why I'm so high on Herbig as a player, is like there's so much on the menu for him on like key down and distances, like third downs and stuff. Like you're only restricted to you're only restricted in your own like lack of creativity. And for Graham, you can say what you want about like the results and things like that. I do think he's a pretty creative guy, just based on the fact how much he's bobbed and weaved throughout his career. So I'm excited. I don't think that you're going to get, usage concerns beyond like just the fact that he's going to probably be playing behind Alex Highsmith and TJ Watt again, but that's the other thing about McCarthy that I do like is, the best players are going to get the ball. I think I mentioned that on the last time we went live, but no more force feeding touches to Johnny Smith because he's been your buddy for however long or whatever. Tolzien's still coaching the bowl. Yep. So some of those interviews and stuff, oh my God, I'm 25 minutes behind on the chat. Some of those things are very, very fluid. Assuming Rodgers come back, how would you like them address the QB room? So my take on this is like, does McCarthy see like a developmental prospect in the draft that he's interested in? If he does, I think you should just take him. I mean, this is why you hired him in the first place, right? Like if he's the guy to develop the next quarterback, like if you see a potential starter there that's outside the first round, you should still draft him. I think McCarthy's evaluation, which I'm sure either he has done or will do of Will Howard's college film, I think matching that up with the guys in this class is going to be, pretty telling on like, who he, like what the direction they choose to go. See, that's how I know I'm behind. Somebody, Tony, my guy, Tony said, bless you. Facts, I appreciate smash the like button. Yeah, but I think for me, if Rodgers comes back, it'll probably end up being, him, Mason, Will, but just like Mason Rudolph, there's nothing that Mason's ever done throughout his career, like as a career backup, that would prevent me from drafting somebody that I liked in the draft class as a dart throw. And I think from the Steelers' perspective, I used to think of it like if you're drafting quarterbacks after the first round, you're just wasting your time just because the hit rate is so low. I've recently kind of reconsidered my stance on that, just because like if you're in a position like the Steelers are in, now seeing how they've been in this like purgatory for so long without a quarterback, I almost think that you should just continue to take shots, mainly because I almost think like more than we like to admit, even like people like myself, quarterback evaluation is a little bit about luck. So, you give yourself enough bites at the apple. So we talked a little bit about receivers as well. Draft thoughts on Jacob Rodriguez in round 3. So I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't think we're on the same page with the Patrick Queen thing. Like if we're talking about like cap casualties or one to get like younger or anything like that, like moving on from Queen would not be the way that I would really want to go. But that's just my opinion. I haven't watched Rodriguez a lot beyond what I saw at the Senior Bowl, which he was solid at the Senior Bowl. I will admit that. A lot of guys, the Pitt linebacker was good at the Senior Bowl as well. I've seen a decent amount of like his one-on-ones. I've been mostly like focusing on the wide receiver cornerback stuff. So, um, how do you feel about Simpson round one? All right, kind of talked about that. Do you like the Patrick Graham hire? Like I am like cautiously optimistic about the Graham hire. Yes, that's how I. It's a good point. So we talked about this a lot on the pod. It is just it's difficult to describe the defense, but things that I would say that I'll probably no matter what style defense he goes to, cover two, a lot of disguise rotations, interior twist stunts and games. But like the beauty of Graham has been just that like his scheme evolves like to the talent, to the personnel, whatever he needs to do. So like when he first got the defensive coordinator job under Flo, it was a lot of like he's from the New England tree, so it was a lot of man coverage, a lot of blitzing. Then he goes to the Giants, he starts running a lot more like sim pressures. Then he goes to Vegas and like of course it's still running some sims, but then he kind of gets into kind of the split safety world and things like that he kind of learned from Green Bay when he was there for like a year with like Mike Pettin. I think it's somewhere where I read that he kind of started with the split safety stuff, a lot more like disguise rotations. In 2024, they got like super blitz heavy again. So like they led the league in like 7-man pressures, high up there, over 20%, like 6-man pressure rate as well. So it just depends on like the year of defense that you're studying. As far as like what to expect, what you should expect, and what I am expecting Graham to bring here is a more modern approach to defense in terms of he's going to do what the players do best, and try to make things a little bit more difficult from a matchup game plan specific standpoint. Colby just said the other day, great word. Thank you so much for becoming a member. What would be your ideal prototype or option for Big Mike's quarterback? That's a good point, man. I mean, to be honest with you, like going through like my film study of the Cowboys offense, Dak was like such a perfect, a perfect player for him. The way that he processes information. If you're not going to get one of those super like freak athletes, you might as well get the supercomputer. So, I think listening to McCarthy talk about quarterback play over the years, like, accuracy is big. Being able to handle like, the operation and make sure you stay ahead of schedules is going to be big for him. He's huge on like footwork and fundamentals. That's why like I'm kind of curious on like if he'll even like, I think that Malik Willis has came a long way from a timing perspective and things like that. You could definitely tell LaFleur's done a good job with him, but like Willis would be a pretty big project, I feel like, to take on for this style of offense, like because of how it's a big boy offense that requires a lot from the quarterback. So, but yeah, I mean, ideally I would like to get one of the freak athletes that, like, could I get Herbert? Like, like Herbert would be cool. It's just really, really hard to find those guys. Do you have a general top 20 to 50 free agent list ready to go over? I don't have that, man. Should we do? I'm open to maybe if you want, like after the stream's over, or if you want to drop them in the chat and I can maybe go back and try to find it and read it. If you guys want to give me some ideas of what you want to see for like free agency content this year, let me know. In years past, the way that we've done it is like I've kind of compiled the positions where I think they're probably going to be addressing, whether it's like I'll pick like the top 3 or 4 needs. I'll compile like maybe the top 5 guys that I think like make sense and maybe some like dart throws. And then like right before free agency starts, I think last year we did a video that was just like the best of the best. And it was like a bunch of just like random players that like I think are like have niche skill sets that would be kind of cool to add into the fold. But if you guys have something different, whatever. But I know there's a lot of free agency lists out there. The ones that I typically check, like if you wanted to go and just like look for something, PFF, my guy Josh Capo is doing the contract projections for them now. That would be a good one to look at. Their rankings are really just going to be based on their grades, but like Josh does really good stuff with the cap, and he's probably a good source of information for that. Have you watched Sawyer Robinson? I have watched Sawyer Robinson over the summer. I will tell you that my 2-game sample size in the summer led me to pretty quickly turn off his film as somebody that I was not particularly interested in. I did see that he was, I did watch some of the Senior Bowl stuff. I didn't think that anyone at the Senior Bowl looked particularly great from what I saw. I think Altmaier maybe was the best one. But Champ, we talked about Dylan Thieneman already. So if you haven't, if you weren't in here at that time, like you could rewind and go see that. But Fraser wide receivers, already talked about that. What's your ideal round 1 and 2 picks provided Steelers stay at 21? I want a receiver. So like, I mean, I would be really happy with like Mekhi Lemon or Jordan Tyson. Like, even if I had to move up a little bit, I understand the injury concerns with Tyson, but getting another like real deal wide receiver for whoever the next quarterback is cool. I think, cornerback would be an area that I would have previously said. One thing about Graham is like he hasn't had good cornerback play to work with. Now having Joey's probably gonna be the best guy that he's had, to be honest with you, especially on the perimeter. But getting one of these guys on day 2, like maybe somebody that can play in the slot would be nice. Round 2, maybe a little bit early for a guy like Jaden Kennedy, who I thought was good at the Shrine Bowl, but like maybe I just lost his name. Chris Johnson from San Diego State. Johnson is a guy who I think could play like inside, outside for you and give you some versatility. Like, I just think he checks so many boxes for like where the league's at right now. So he would be somebody that I would maybe look at. What's up, Brooklyn? Appreciate you tapping in with us. Evans, I would say out of these names, man, like Evans is definitely going back. Christian Kirk's kind of an interesting one, I guess. If Tomlin was still the coach, I would 100% tell you that Kirk is going to definitely be the guy that they go with, just because they always had this like running bit where they would always sign guys that just blew the doors off of them when they played. Like, I remember Dante Moncrief, like I think 2 or 3 of his best game of his entire career came against the Steelers. Boom, next thing you know. I saw your tweet on Washington dropping weight to better fit the scheme. Can you elaborate? Yeah, I can. Let me take a drink of water real quick. So for me personally, the way that I view, the way that Washington's mass really helped the Steelers over the past couple of years in a couple ways, like setting the edge or sealing the edge on like perimeter run games with all their like outside zone stuff was obviously a huge thing. And then a lot of the stuff in terms of staying in pass protection too. Like, you want a guy having a guy that's 305, 310 in pass pro is a lot different than having a guy who's 270 because edge rushers can't just run through your face. But like those things aren't necessarily going to be things he's going to be asked to do in McCarthy's scheme. Like, Mike isn't a big like outside zone type of guy, and he's also not like a big I wouldn't say that he just leaves his tackles out on an island in the way that like maybe some other schemes. Like, I think of like Buffalo being like one of those kind of teams where they're going to do 5-man protection no matter what. Like, you got Will Anderson, you got Danielle Hunter, don't care, we're doing 5-man protection. The Steelers have done a good job like protecting the tackles kind of with some of the chips and just the additional resources that they'll put there. But like McCarthy will give some chips and things like that, and he'll help the offensive line in other ways, but it's not nearly that drastic. If you're going to play tackle in this offense, like you're going to have to execute some big boy assignments. And that's that to me. If you would ask me like the 2 guys that lose, like if you were putting together like a winners losers list from the McCarthy hire, like how it's going to affect them offensively, the 2 biggest losers easily for me are Broderick, because of like, I just do not trust him at all in pass protection at this stage of his career. And then Caleb Johnson, who like from a running back standpoint, he will give them the opportunity to catch passes. Pass protection is huge for him. You're just it's going to be really, really tough. And then I already mentioned the lack of outside zone stuff with Caleb. So, oh my gosh, I'm so we already read that. How high on the panic meter would you be if Doug Nussmeier is added to the OC candidate list? That would be crazy. Like, could you imagine, like, being the offensive coordinator for your son? That is wild. Carson, appreciate all the work. Thank you, man. I really appreciate that. Yeah, it has been it's been quite the journey. Sometimes it's funny to think back to like a bit of a reflection point for me happened with the Graham thing, because I was going back and just like I wanted to kind of see how I've thought about Graham over the years, and like going back and even like looking at some of the tweets. Like some of the tweets I was putting out about Patrick Graham a couple of years ago got like 3 likes, for like something like that. And then, even going back a little bit further, just random topics. And then like I look at it now and anytime I can just like randomly pop on a Friday. No, like very little heads up. There's no like breaking news or anything like that. I can hop on a YouTube channel that I created really on my own accord. And there's over 100 some people in here just like willing to, talk ball, like no clickbait stuff. So I'm really proud of the progress that we've made. I'm proud of mostly of the way that I've done it, avoiding like the clickbait, the quick cash in. But it's really fun. Like I say it all the time, but I really would not do this stuff if I wasn't having fun with it. And I'm still having a blast talking ball with you guys. So pretty much are the best and make this thing go, man. I don't see Alec Pierce leaving Indy unless you overpay. Yeah, I mean they got a decision they got to make on Michael Pittman too. Like he's another guy that'll probably. I mean, there's a chance he could be available. Somehow Chris Ballard's still in Indy, right? Like he like a cat, 9, 10, 11 lives. So who knows? I know Pittman's a big Ballard guy, but he's overpaid according to his contract, I would say. Is this a make or break year for Omar? Make or break is tough. I mean, my patience with Omar kind of started to like run a little bit thin last year with just the receiver debacle. I don't think he's done a terrible job though. I would say that after this year, we could probably have like maybe some conversations about whether he's the right or wrong GM for them. But it's also easy to just say, hey, this guy hasn't had the chance to go take a quarterback, but you can only use that excuse for so long. Like just with the NFL being what it is, like it's a results oriented business. If they choose not to go with a quarterback or whatever, then stock up for Muth. Yeah, I mean, I think especially with Lunda Wells, if he comes over, that would be another thing. I got really good feedback just asking around people that have like covered him or been around him or whatever. And it seems like he's highly respected. A lot of work with tight ends, and McCarthy has had some good tight ends that they developed in Dallas. I mean, you think Schultz, he got paid, Ferguson got paid, so could definitely be a good thing for Muth. I mean, this McCarthy's offense is going to chuck the ball around, so if you're a pass catcher and you're capable of getting open, especially like in the intermediate or underneath area of the field, like you should eat in this offense. It is a better fit for the Arthur Smith thing. I wouldn't even really say that the Arthur Smith offense like wasn't a good fit for him. It just like this past year, they just kind of fumbled the basics, like not under like prioritizing the best players, which has always kind of been a thing with Art. How would you feel about trading up with Lemon? I'm cool. I like Lemon a lot. I think one of the best comps I saw, and I don't do a lot of comps personally. I know I say that as like somebody asked me about the Jordan Tyson CeeDee Lamb thing that I was talking about on social media the other day. But Lemon to me, I think my buddy James Foster from he's done a ton of draft work, but he's like a great follow, a friend of mine, whatever. But I think he comped him to Doug Baldwin, and that was like one of the things I just couldn't unsee. I think he's kind of in that mold of guys that can play outside, guys that can play inside. Do you think the Steelers will trade TJ? I don't think McCarthy's going to be like just this whole like hometown kid, homecoming thing. I would be really surprised if he just came in and like started to trade the like one of the most storied franchise players or pieces ever. No, I don't think J-Mo is going to get moved. He just got a contract extension last offseason. I think doesn't kick in until this year anyway. First and second on wide receivers, yes, heavy investment. I mean, what Rodgers demands in the passing game and like the actual what Rodgers demands in the passing game and McCarthy's offense, the way it's structured, there's a lot of similarity to it. So, it's very like spread out, get completions, spacing, things like that. But I don't know that I would like, regardless of if Rodgers is back or whatever, I just think they need to go get somebody that is like a quick winner. I talked about that a lot leading up to the draft process last year. It was like, if Rodgers is going to come in, like you're going to need somebody to like win quick because like he's not going to hold on to the ball. Like you're going to have to get the ball out quick, and you're going to have to get open like that underneath. And did they add anybody? I don't know. I can't even remember. I've tried to like block off a lot of like that whole debacle last year already, but Can we afford to trade up for Sonny Styles? Hey, man, you will not have to convince me that trading up for Sonny Styles is a bad idea. I know the last time they traded up for a linebacker it didn't work out well, but hey, Devin Bush about to get paid. Like, I almost think that linebacker is almost in the same vein as offensive line, where we just may not know how good those guys are for a little while, or maybe it's just a good scheme fit with Schwartz's system. I don't know. What would you want at quarterback, or who would you want at quarterback realistically? Well, you know, I don't think there are good options. So that's why I said, like, as much as I hate the idea of bringing Rodgers back, I don't know that there are like good options that like I'm like just jumping out of my seat for. We'll see who's available. I could just the thing is with me this year, I think I could just be talked into a lot of different things. The Rodgers thing is not like one of them. I would just I said this on the Steelers afternoon drive, but I would just be wanting to go with somebody who wasn't as limited and could let you get into more things, and also, you know, somebody hopefully younger that maybe you can find a cheaper quarterback or something like that for the next year or two while if you want to build the rest of the roster, if you want to re-energize the defense with younger pieces or something like that. But I just don't see like what the Rodgers thing really gets you. I'm sure I'll have more definitive takes on like the quarterbacks that are available. I'm planning on doing like the free agency stuff again. Like I'll watch more Malik Willis film. Although I've done some. I'll watch like more stuff. I'll probably watch some Kyler because I know he's probably going to be available. I don't have any interest in Tua, I don't think. But Gray Wolf, I actually saw that you asked me this question on Twitter too, and I apologize for not getting back with you. Have I dove much into McCarthy's offense in Dallas? Yes. I just did a stream last weekend going over an entire game where we kind of like talked through and watched through the all 22. I will have like more film room stuff from like really as soon as this weekend all the way up until the regular season starts. So I would say this channel will probably have a good amount of what you're looking at. In terms of if you have any starting point recommendations, you're not going to find a lot of the guys that I probably look for as like resources for learning about like offenses around the league, like Bobby Peters, like his books or anything like that. Like you're not like a lot of the guys that are looking for like cool new age NFL offense stuff. It's not going to be a lot of like what McCarthy runs, like because his offense is like very like old school. So it's going to be difficult to find like new stuff on that. I would just say like honestly, the best thing you could probably do is just buy yourself the NFL Pro subscription. Like go watch the All 22 for yourself, form your own conclusions, ask questions if you see something you don't understand, or just Google around and things like that. You know, there's a lot of like free resources too on like YouTube that you could probably look at. But apparently, on the only one in here that feels like it's a pipe dream. I mean, it's one of those things where I'm going to need to see it to believe it, right? Just because of how let down I've been over the past 2 years. But I also just think that like McCarthy's going to come in, he's going to have a decent amount of say and control. Like he's got the resume, you know, he's the elder statesman in the room. This is his offense. Like there's no way he can't look at the receiver depth chart right now and be like, yeah, this is a significant problem. As much as he said in the press conference, like, oh, like they left the cupboard full or whatever, the receiver position does not indicate that. But DB, I would love for Steelers to grab Pregnon or Bizantis. Yeah. I did a decent amount of stuff on Pregnon for like during the season just because I was following Dante Moore. That dude is a dog. I haven't watched Bizantis as much, but I know like a lot of people that I trust are pretty high on him. You think they trade Highsmith or Herbig? Here's the deal. Like, I don't want to trade Herbig, and I would not do that for sure. Having said that, I will say there is no player on this roster right now that is untradeable. And the reason for that is because they don't have a quarterback. So if you think that trading any player on the roster right now would give you the access to go get your quarterback of choice, they are on the trade block. Would I just trade him to go get draft capital or because you've got a logjam with the position? Probably not. Especially because Herbig's just so young, man. I wouldn't want to do that. Will the run defense finally get fixed? Oh boy. It's gonna be different, the structure of the front. Graham is a fronts guy by his own kind of description. I'm not ready to say that they're gonna have like a top 5, top 10 run defense, though. Not with the guys that they got on the roster. Ashlyn, Joshua, hi. Appreciate the membership, guys. Thank you guys so much. Who would be your ideal available replacement for PQ if he's let go? I mean, Sonny Styles, 100%. Like, I think that that dude is so freaking good, man. Like, the one thing I will say about the PQ conversation, I'm not nearly on board with like letting him go like other people are. Now, the question is, are you willing to invest in the draft? Like, if he's gone, I would have to do that. And this is a really good draft class for linebackers. Normally, we're lucky if we get one draftable player, and I think we're going to get a bunch. So this year, so I'm really excited about that element of it. So Guillermo, appreciate you tapping in, man. You have questions about Joey with fit and Shula's defense? How do they fit with the Rams? You know, my questions with Joey's defense was just because they don't press as much. They don't. It was zone heavy, even more so than Graham has been. Now, having said that, I think Joey is a tough player to place in the modern NFL just because, and I've said this a couple times, like Joey is like one of my favorite players to watch on film when he's in press and like man coverage one on one, just because like I love that stuff. Like I geek out, nerd out over those battles. It's just such a limited part of like where the NFL is right now. You just don't see a lot of man coverage, not a lot of press, and there's just other stuff, other elements that are probably more important. Like 5 years ago, if you go look at like some of the draft takes I had on like cornerbacks and things like that, some of them have probably aged pretty poorly, to be honest, because 5, 6 years ago, probably the only thing I cared about was like, can he play man coverage? Because I grew up like kind of the Saban ideology, listening to him talk about ball, where it's like, I want corners that are, 6 foot. I want them to have like, they have to be able to play man coverage, non-negotiable. They have to be able to tackle, which I still do believe that. I think the zone coverage, like awareness and feel, does matter a lot more than it used to. The run defense stuff matters a lot more than it used to with the way you're getting attacked. So that's a long-winded explanation to where I would just tell you, we'll see. I'm not as worried about it, but it's also because like Graham has ran 100 different, he's ran 12 different iterations of his own defense, whereas Shula, I've only really seen him call his defense from the past 2 years. So how would you rate the Steelers' top 5 needs? Oh my gosh. Quarterback, receiver again. Corner, specifically slot. I mean, I think I would be okay if they kind of didn't spend a ton on like cornerback 2, but I really want like a dynamic apex defender. I just think I look around the way that the NFL is, the best defenses have those guys, and I think that it can really change the math for you. I think that would be something. So I think top 3 for sure for me would be quarterback, wide receiver, slot corner. You got some other things, safety, you don't necessarily have to like spend big on that. Guard, you don't have to spend big on that, but those are going to be things that they'll have to address in the offseason, especially depending on what happens with Ramsey, what happens with Sayamalo. Do they bring him back? Really like watching Dak's film. Is there any way that we could get a quarterback that could reflect? That's what I'm saying. Like Dak is just kind of like his own unique thing. Like you just don't see like Dak's an old school quarterback. That's why I said he's a perfect fit for McCarthy's old school offense, because he plays from the pocket. He's so comfortable with the rhythmic aspect of it. And just from winning with his brain. And a lot of quarterbacks that are coming in right now are winning with more of like their athletic tools and kind of having to learn as they go. So it's just not nearly as easy. I appreciate you, man. Thank you for dropping another super chat. You did not have to do this, especially because you didn't drop a question for me. But I do appreciate it. Yeah, the penalties for McCarthy is a good point, Jonathan. I also think the reduction in turnovers under Graham is going to be something. The Steelers have gotten turnovers, whether we want to say it's like luck, voodoo, whatever. I do think that they've done a good job preaching that culture. That is one thing that we talked about on the pod. It's going to have to get better. It is for sure. What safety would you love to see drafted in the second? I mean, it just depends on like what style of defense are you trying to play, right? Like, are you after like a pure free safety? To me, the way that I would like to construct the defense is like where both of my safeties could do a bunch of different things. Now, maybe they can't do everything, but they would be able to do multiple of these things. They would be able to play in the post. They would be able to play on the half turn. They would be able to play in the box, or they would have some type of man coverage ability from the slot, or if they're going to play in this, and as a bonus, if they play in a slot, can they add on as a pressure package player? I don't like. I think that when you draft players to be specifically like a free safety, so or a box safety, I think it limits the flexibility of your defense because it makes you predictable, and teams will be able to, as the season go on, be able to cue in on your tells based on what you ask those players to do. So ideally, you would just have, maybe if they're not a superstar at any one thing, you'd be able to have a safety that could do a little bit of everything, and that would be something I would look at. But if you are looking at like specific skill sets, and it's also difficult to know honestly if those guys, I just listed all those different like skills or assignments that I would be thinking about. Like, it's difficult to know if these guys can actually do those things because in college they don't anymore, because the way that the like college defenses used to be so much ahead of the curve in terms of um, innovation, I would say, because they had more time with the players, and they had them for longer. But now with like the transfer portal stuff, a lot of the college defenses are getting like simplified because you just don't know if you're going to have the guys like year over year. And this is a really long-winded explanation that I'm giving you here. Genesis Smith is a guy that I thought of immediately when you said that for like day two, like him and Thieneman, who we've already kind of talked about. Smith is the guy who like tons of range on the back end, like effortless mover, has some ball skills to him. I also think like he could do some like man coverage stuff for you out of the slot. The thing with him is like, I just don't know if he's like, I don't want to say he's soft, but he doesn't play with the level of physicality that I personally want in my safeties. So that's kind of where I'm at with that personally. Another guy that's been at the Senior Bowl, Emmanuel McNeil Warren, he was on my, I think I may still have, I don't know if it's still pinned on my profile or not on Twitter. But that was a guy that I highlighted before the season coming in from Toledo, that I was pretty excited about. Just his length, I think he's like listed like 6'3", really dense build. But the things that he could do from a playing top down perspective, but like also can match up with like bigger wide receivers, bigger tight ends, really big tackler in terms of the dude lays the absolute boom, forces a lot of fumbles too. So we talked a lot about turnovers. You got to have guys that innately seek those out. Thank you. Another super chat is ridiculous, but I do appreciate you asking me a question this time. Broderick's future at left guard. I hate to let you down. I've been asked this a lot. I just I wish I could hate the way DV hates John. I don't hate John. I knew it's so frustrating for me because I knew exactly how this is going to go. Nobody listened to me, and I'm not saying I'm always right about everything. I'm wrong about plenty of stuff. That was just so easy to see that was going to be a disaster, and they did it, whatever. But Broderick's future at left guard. Broderick plays too high, in my opinion, and doesn't play with tight enough hands to play in a phone booth like that. So when you're talking about guys that play with bad ped level or bad technique, like usually moving them on the inside is not going to be something that actually helps them. When you think about guys that get moved inside and actually have success, it's more guys that can win in a phone booth, but you're moving them in there because they maybe don't have the range to protect the outside shoulder, or maybe they don't have the side-to-side mirror ability or quickness to cut off like two-way goes and things like that. You don't want to play in space. Like Broderick, to me, I don't necessarily know that he's like great at doing those things in particular, but I don't think that putting him in a phone booth the way that he catches rushers is necessarily going to be good for him either. And I also don't think like he's a good enough run blocker, an impactful enough run blocker that sustains blocks the way that you would want your guard to be moving inside. And AR-15, could he be saved? His value could be non-existent. Ooh, are we at the Anthony Richardson? I didn't even think about that as a possibility. That'd be fun. That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know that there's anything to suggest that McCarthy and Richardson could like work out. And there's definitely a lower floor with something like that than Rodgers. But like, I would 100% rather do that than whatever they're going to do with Rodgers next year, which is probably going to end up being like, winning 8 to 10 games or whatever. But you don't really have a chance, once it gets into the meat and potatoes part of the schedule, the playoffs. Aaron McCarthy talked about innovation and involvement. I mean, I think sometimes, and I'm not saying he was saying this, but I think sometimes when coaches get in front of the camera, they talk about certain like buzzwords. Like innovation, things like that. That's kind of what I was saying with like I wanted to see some new voices maybe in the room instead of like just kind of getting the band back together. But it's going to be very similar to what he learned in Dallas. Now, maybe he surprises me. Maybe he did use this past year when he was off from coaching to go study a bunch of like what's the best offenses in the NFL doing? Like what's McVay doing that I can steal from? Like what's Kyle Shanahan? Like he just had most of the season he was using a backup. And they're putting up crazy numbers. Like what are they doing? Um, what's Josh McDaniels doing with the, I mean, there's some like McDaniels offense is like kind of, I think people think of that as like more so like old school too, but yeah. Da, da, da. Yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily disagree with like the productivity of it. I just don't necessarily think that there's anything to get excited about over having like a quarterback that's going to be again like the 20th, 22nd, 23rd best quarterback in the NFL. I would just rather take my chances, be a little bit more ambitious. I don't think that's going to happen, man. To be honest, I don't think they're going to end up trading a lot of people. I just realized that I've been on here an hour when I said I was going to be on here like 30, 45 minutes. I'm not concerned that we went over because I knew that that was probably going to happen. I am concerned about where my food is at. Anyway, Reginald, what's up, Steeler Nation for Bartlett, Tennessee? What's good? Appreciate you tapping in with me, man. Thank you very much. Are we talking about Will Howard? I see some Will Howard comments. Is it just January filter? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that's something he did before he took when he heard the job was coming up, and maybe he did pop on some Will Howard tape. Maybe he did evaluate quarterbacks in the last cycle. I don't know. To be honest, I think only Mike could really tell us that. As of right now, it's one of those things where I'm not really putting too much stock into it. It's just very rare for like a day 3 quarterback to be given like a legitimate chance to start anywhere. It's just the odds are just so far against it. So, besides Simpson, any quarterback that they should try to give a shot at? Oh my gosh, it's really tough, man. Because when I was before the season ended, I think 4 of my top 6 or 7. I think 4 of my top 7 guys. No, 5 of my top 7 guys. Excuse me. Sorry, Jesus. That I had on my draft board ended up going back to school, with Simpson being the only other guy than Mendoza that ended up coming out. I mean, it's just hard because Trinidad Chambliss is a guy that's gained like a decent amount of steam with the way that he played at Ole Miss. If he's in this class, is he somebody that McCarthy sees some upside in? Like, what are your other options? Do you want to take on like a reclamation project, like Drew Aller, like obviously big arm? I don't know what else like he's really like proven that he can offer you with any type of consistency. Nussmeier would be the one in terms of the above the neck stuff, the way that he handles the pocket. But I think that Nuss is a guy that's been banged up a lot. I also think that he doesn't have the decision-making element of the game down. I think the game does still move a little bit too fast for him. And if you're a guy without good tools, or like what I would even probably classify as above average tools, it's tough in the league because like the windows, you look at some of the interceptions that he threw at LSU, like the windows are way tighter. The pockets are way tighter in the league. So if you're, you can play the anticipation, but if those mistakes, like you just don't have that same type of room for error. So I don't know. Klubnik was the other one that I would say maybe early day 3 type of but I like Klubnik to me was like a very, very low. He wasn't like a super high ceiling guy either. And I just talked a lot about I would want to pursue that. John is going to the Buckeyes. Oh gosh. P-Town. Appreciate you tapping in with me, my guy. I like that jacket too. Is that a Mavs jacket? Old school Mavs jacket? That looks like some Michael Finley merch. I like that. I will say I'm not a beat reporter though. Not that I necessarily hate that like being called that, or I have a ton of respect for people on the beat. It's just not what I do personally. But so we kind of already talked a little bit about this. I mean, Mac Jones will be somebody. It's just you're gonna have to trade for him. I do wonder. I had this galaxy brain thought, and you guys kind of let me know in the chat if I'm off base. Um, Kirk Cousins, right? Kirk Cousins is going to get released by Atlanta. We know that Kyle Shanahan has tried to bring him along with him multiple times now. Could a Kirk Cousins backup to Brock Purdy plan on the cheap, considering he's still getting paid by Atlanta? Could that open up San Francisco to maybe deal Mac for a position to start elsewhere, and they could maybe get a I don't want to trade a second round pick for Mac Jones, but like maybe it would be like some type of day two draft capital. Let's call it that. I wonder if that's on the table now. Before then, I would have said probably not, just because Brock is a guy that'll get hurt a lot. The John who hate is hilarious. It's not hate. I promise I don't hate anybody, man. And I actually talked to Johnu at training camp multiple times this past year, and I thought he seemed like a really good dude. So I don't want to say that I hate the dude. Thoughts on Carnell Tate? Huge season. Honestly, one of the biggest. I would say one of the players that improved their stock the most. I'm not, because I don't do NFL draft analysis. Like, I do it full time, but not really full time. Just like I do this part time. I would say like from the summer, like he was one of probably maybe like 50 guys that was able to kind of dive into a little bit in the summer. He's the most improved player that I saw this year, just in terms of the attention to detail in his routes, understanding how to create separation for himself. And then you just look at like the catch radius stuff, the things that he could do like on a vertical plane, very sure-handed. Also, I think like his effort in the run game is pretty good too. For a player with that type of pedigree, I always like to take note of that. So I think he gives a lot of effort in the run game. Tate would be the guy. I do think if I had to bet right now, I think he'll be the number one wide receiver off the board. I don't think Pittsburgh will even have the chance to take him. I don't think he's going to blaze it up at the combine, but unless he runs something super slow, I don't think that'll be an option. What I would say is that I think that Tate is like, he is an X receiver is kind of like the way that I would classify him. So him and Metcalf may be a little too redundant. So George, a true nose tackle would be something. It's kind of interesting what Graham will think of Benton in that spot. The interior twist that Graham likes to run from a pass rushing perspective could open up some doors for Harmon and Benton in that regard for sure. You can find early down nose tackles really in free agency every single year for very little financial investment. I mean, what's our guy that we talked about last year? Lopez from, I think he went to Detroit. I think he's a free agent again this year. So these guys, they're always around. So you could always pick them up. I just don't know if they're going to actually do it. Graham gets a lot out of less. I mean, I don't know about a lot because the defenses statistically haven't been great, but they have been like he has gotten more than what I think probably most coordinators would have gotten. Yeah, I don't like Caleb's outlook, man. I'll be honest with you. Does it make you nervous? McCarthy's behind the draft. Did the draft and area scouts go when Tomlin left? That is a good question. I don't know. The scouts, their contracts a lot of times run out like after the cycle. So will McCarthy want to bring in all new guys? You wouldn't want to like move on from those guys right now just because like they're the ones who have been doing all the legwork on the road. And at this point in the season, like they've already finished their evals. Obviously, they're coming back and starting to discuss it more like internally. And then once you get into the combine and stuff like that, then that's where like your assistant coaches and like your GMs and stuff. Well, I mean, the GM's kind of always involved, but that's more so like when you're starting to bring in input from like your coaching staff, the head coach in particular starts to get more involved. So I don't necessarily think that change needs to happen overnight, but there could definitely be some. I personally, I would like to know the interworking dynamics of the Steelers scouting staff, and I've always like really been curious about that. But Who would come close to the there's just not one. I don't want to lead you astray, Scott. Trade for Spencer Rattler. Rattler playing in the Kellen Moore offense, there's some overlap between like Moore and McCarthy. Obviously, they coach together in Dallas, but I do think that their offenses like have some similarities for sure. Um, okay, I'll tell you what. I'll watch some Rattler film from this past year, and I'll tell you. I'll give an answer to that maybe next time we go live, or I'll definitely include him in whatever content that I do for quarterback options coming up on free agency. I don't want to give you a take right now, but because I haven't really watched this film, I just feel like I'd be leading you astray. But I do think he did some good things. I would say the one thing that I remember when I was watching Shaheed's film when we were talking about trade candidates for wide receivers early in the season was that Rattler was missing some deep ball shots that I thought were kind of hurting. The deep ball, like, that stuff kind of does come and go. It's a smaller sample size. You never really know. I thought Rattler did some pretty good stuff in terms of like pocket work. Um, he's definitely a guy that's going to make some shaky decisions, I feel like, from time to time. But all right, trying to slide through these comments here. I appreciate that, man, very much. Appreciate the work. Been following a couple new. Thank you, Sammy. I appreciate that. It's been a blast. What's good, Justin? My guy. Thanks for tapping in with me. Nick, do you think there's any way they promote Omar to PFO, make it out of the gym so we can stop it from leaving? That's a good question. I think it depends on like where Omar is at with his career. I think that would be pretty quick for him to be moved up in that capacity, just because Omar waited his turn for a long time. Really started from the bottom. I remember a couple of years ago when they made that when they were making that decision, I kind of asked behind the scenes a lot of like, I would say, we'll call it like legacy media people that have been around and like aware of like how the Steelers do things behind the scenes with Kevin Colbert. Specifically, the two people I wanted to know about were like Omar and then his name is escaping me. His last name is Hunt, but I don't want to butcher his first name. He went to Philly, but basically just like asking about those guys and what they would bring to the table. And the number one thing that I heard from multiple people about Omar is like he's a freaking grinder. Like this dude like started from the bottom, like around the clock type of guy. And a lot of these people that work behind the scenes to like work their way up in the league, that's how it goes. Like you don't get a lot of sleep. It's a lot of like 12, 13, 14 hours sleeping in your office type of stuff. That is like how it's been over the past couple of decades. It's not a good work-life balance. So that's a long-winded answer to your question, but I would be surprised if he was already kind of done with the GM thing after waiting for so long in this organization, waiting his turn for him to only do it for like 3 years. I'm not sure if that would be the thing. Are we back on White Watch for the Vikings job opening? I mean, I think the one thing you see with Weidel, his they just began to invest more in the trenches, so it's always hard from our vantage point to see like, who's calling the shots behind the scenes on the draft stuff. I know he puts together a decent amount of the draft board. I think there have been some good things that they've done in the draft, like mentioned in the offensive line, like Fautanu, Frazier. There have also been some bad things that they've done as well. Levis was another guy that kind of I thought about maybe if it was going to be like a Ram style system. So like if they would have brought over like Shieldhouse, I kind of thought about maybe Levis as a reclamation project. Maybe not as someone you would want as your starter next year, but like swapping him out ironically for a guy like Mason Rudolph, who you could, at least give you another dart throw, because Levis played under Liam Cohen at Kentucky. So Cohen was with the Rams, and then there's just a lot of like carryover in that system. What's the deal with the Kyler Murray thing? Oh man, the thing about Kyler, if he does come here, would be that I would have to go back and just delete so many tweets because people would just be trolling the ever loving life out of me on social media. I've just never really been been as high on Kyler as, like, I think a lot of people are or have been. I don't think people are high on him now, obviously, after the whole thing with Arizona this past year. But even, like, the year before, I still felt like I was lower on the consensus. Do I think that Kyler could be like a could he be an average quarterback or something like that? Yeah. Would I like the Kyler idea? Like, would I like to trade, like, a inconsequential draft pick to get Kyler on a market contract for like a year with no long-term investment? I would rather do that than bring back Rodgers. And that's probably a hot take for a lot of people, just because, like, again, Murray's younger, maybe you can grow within the system, different situation, maybe it just, you find the right fit. But I've never been a huge Kyler believer, just because I just don't know that he plays well enough from the pocket. I think a lot of his game is still relatively predicated on his athleticism. There's certain parts of the field that he really can't access with great regularity either, with the size being what it is. But I know you got sources after breaking the Graham signing. Are we trading Herbie? I haven't heard anything about that. I definitely would not. I definitely would not classify you're not this does not just because I got the Graham thing does not mean I'm about to start letting it ride. We're not about to start being like sources DB out here or anything like that. Some of what I hear behind the scenes, I can't share. Some of it is I don't want to share, mainly just because it's not my vibe. Like the only reason that I shared the Graham thing was because, like, I am kind of excited. I like Patrick Graham, so if there's something that and also that was before the McCarthy press conference. I really felt like Steelers Nation needed to pick me up, so I kind of just wanted to throw y'all like a little bit of a bone more than anything else. Ted Hurst, yes, Ted Hurst was on my Senior Bowl watch list for Steelers now. I think Hurst is a really, really interesting player, man. Like, you talk about a dude that can win on a vertical plane. That dude's got some real deal ability. And I was glad that he, did some good things at the Shrine Bowl or Senior Bowl, kind of help his draft stock. I'm very curious on like what he runs. Big dude too. Thoughts on bringing back E-Rob? I want to get younger defensively. I love E-Rob. That's my guy, but I would just I'd really value something like DJ's top 50, except DB's or at least top 5 prospects. I mean, we've done that. I've done that in years past. I mean, we've done Nick and I have done the top 5 position rankings. If that's something you guys are interested in, I would definitely be open to bringing that back. Positional rankings for the draft. I mean, I always put out the my top 100 big board for Steelers now. Honestly, like, it's going to be tough, like, for me to get there this year, just because normally by this time, where the Steelers have been eliminated for 3 weeks now or whatever, by this time I'm like, I've already got probably 30, 40, 50 new names added to my, watch list in terms of the film. I ain't really been able to do very much of it. Like, I watched like a good amount of like the Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl guys. I just watched like kind of like the top 10 maybe players at each of the events, maybe some more than others, some that I hadn't seen before. But I'm definitely behind on the draft scouting. So I don't want to promise that you're going to get a top 100 from me again this year, but we'll have tons of draft content. We'll do definitely plan on doing like the draft weekend stream. Like, we'll do the stream leading up to round 1. I'm not thinking that I'm going to actually attend the draft either. So like, I'm probably going to do it from my house. I thought about maybe trying to see, obviously Alan and them are going to get credentialed to go. I don't think that's something that I even necessarily want to do. So could Ramsey move to the slot if we get a safety? I mean, I, I think there are certain things that Ramsey could still do in the slot. I think that he's probably better suited for that role. It's just, if he's in the slot, you may be, you know, robbing Piper to pay Paul. Is that kind of like the saying, what the saying goes? I think you're going to be taken away. You're going to be given. It's going to be a give and take, because like the man coverage stuff, I think at this stage of his career is probably going to be a little bit of an issue. I mean, to be honest with you, very low. Not that I don't think Peyton's a talented player. I do. It's just the Steelers like didn't seem really like they wanted to make him a full-time player last year. I don't necessarily think that Peyton is, he's definitely not a complete linebacker, but There's nothing I've seen from Peyton. Let me answer your question this way. There's nothing I've seen from Peyton over the last 2 years or on his college film that would say get rid of PQ. Peyton's the mic. Mainly because I think there is like a drastic difference in coverage, specifically zone coverage, and I think that's really what matters a lot from like linebacker standpoint, coverage ability. Oh my gosh, going for an hour and 20 minutes. Sorry, I'm checking on my food. Okay. Let's see. Oh, best free agent list? You mean like top 50 free agent list? Oh, PFF just dropped a free agent list and said Cam Curl to the Steelers. Hey man, I rock with Cam Curl. The one thing that would be kind of interesting is I was watching Graham's defense from 2024, and it was like he was using Trayvon Merrick a lot as like a blitzer, like really weaponizing him. Curl kind of did some blitz stuff with Shula as well, so I would kind of be interested. He had a sack, I think, in the playoff game last weekend, so that would kind of be interesting. I wonder what Curl's gonna get financially. I don't even remember what the Rams signed him for a couple years ago. If I remember correctly, I think it was it less expensive or more expensive than I thought about? Curl was a guy that we highlighted in a free agency video on this channel like years ago when I first started this thing up. Okay. All right, guys. Okay. Thanks for the content. Stay healthy. Scared me. Yeah, that was a little bit scary, but we're good now. So I do appreciate everybody checking in on me. Um, I'm feeling good, feeling great. No, it's just it's a distinction. The beat reporter people have would probably take more of offense to you calling me a beat reporter than I'm gonna take. I would just I classify myself as like more as like a content creator. I like to talk football, talk X's and O's. Like the beat reporters, I have a tremendous amount of respect for like their day-to-day grind, but reporting on the news and those types of things just not necessarily my cup of tea. Best insider in Pittsburgh. Yeah, y'all are trolling. Trolling. Any thoughts on Tanner McKee? I can tell you right now, every time I've seen Tanner McKee play, he's been awesome. I couldn't believe that they traded for Kenny Pickett when they did because I thought McKee was just better. So did he get a chance to play this year? I know like he's been playing like maybe like one game a year or something like that. I know he typically plays fairly well in the preseason. I'd be interested in McKee. He's not a free agent though, is he? I would have known that by now. I would have definitely brought that up. No, I've got to go look. Tanner McKee. Last year of his rookie contracts next year. That's tough. That is tough. All right. Yeah, I said that I was going to watch earlier. I think I said I was going to watch Rodriguez a little bit more. No more short quarterbacks. I think some people were in here talking about Diego Pavia. I am not. We're not even entertaining Diego Pavia. That dude's a wild dude. Seat reporter. That is funny. That is funny. May not be a huge need. Oh yeah, and dude, like Toledo's been churning out some dudes in the secondary too. Okay, DB's down bad for anybody but Rodgers. Gladiator battle. Who you taking between Zachary Smith and Nick Fairball? Oh man, it's tough. You know, I'm gonna take Nick. Because it's one of two things. Zach's been lifting. He likes to post those videos of him in those cutoffs where he's like showing off his traps and stuff. He's been lifting a lot. So originally I would say maybe Smitty, but then I kind of want to say Nick for the main reason of like I know Smitty's got some lack of mobility issues, so like he can't really run. So Nick might be able to hit him one or two times and then get away, and Zach's not going to catch up to him. So I'm gonna say fair ball. But no, Smitty posting that video. If you guys haven't seen it, Smitty posting that video of Fairball like singing in the opera, the choir or whatever. That video is always so funny to me. Who are your favorite sources on Twitter when it comes to getting information insight? For me, it's me. Thank you, Nick, Zach. I mean, that's really what you need. I mean, we do have like we are really blessed with a ton of like really good beat writers. I don't really want to go through like the whole list because I feel like I'll like leave people out. But I think for me, like the must follows are like I think of Allen, and I'm not just saying this because he's my boss at Steelers now, but like I think Allen is like the quintessential standard for like journalism. So like if you're looking for a beat reporter, that is who you're looking at. I think the way that Chris Carter covers the team, like really in depth, like somebody that like knows football for sure. I like the way he does it, and like blends like the content aspect of it with what he does with Locked On. I think it's awesome. The community that he's built over there is dope. I think Nick has been. I mean, I've said this. Nick and I go way back. We've been knowing each other, following each other literally since freaking Patrick Graham was the Giants defensive coordinator. I've said for a long time that Nick is like the rising star in the industry, not just for like Steelers related. I think Nick will end up being like a national reporter. Like 15, 20 years from now, you'll see Nick on ESPN. I think he's that good at the job. He obviously knows a lot about football too, but he's like the prodigy. And then Smitty, from a content standpoint, Smitty is just like hilarious. And he's also like extremely well plugged in, and he's like super passionate. So like you kind of get the best of both worlds, and that like he's got the passion of a lot of people in the fan base, and then he knows a lot of people, which that's cool. And obviously I think he knows a decent amount about football too. So other people that I would shout out, I mean, there's so many. I think one of the best people, newer folks that I would say that I feel like are value added for what Steelers fans should be looking for is DeFabo for The Athletic. I think DeFabo is awesome, man. Like from a journalism standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, I think the work that he does is like incredibly detailed. So I mean, that's a short list of people that I would follow. Those are probably the people that I have, definitely hold in the highest of regards. We'll call it that. Nate, you feel like doing a 3-round PFF mock? I do feel like doing it, but my food just got here, so we'll have to spin the block on this one. But we could do stuff. We can definitely do stuff like that as we get further and further into this thing. Maybe the next time I jump on a live, I'll have it pulled up. I'm open to doing some of that stuff, just more so for fun. But speaking of mock drafts, the 135 of you guys that are still here as we close this thing out, there is going to be a mock draft on Steelers now early next week. So I want to be posting. I usually do 3 mocks. One is like my first early one, which is like first week of February. I always do is like, this is kind of like what I would do type of thing. These kind of players make sense. As we get into the second and third one, it's more about like linking, okay, like who they have like contact with, the more we just have more information available to us at that point. So they go into more like into the predictive nature of like, this is what I think is going to happen, not necessarily what I would do. So that's kind of how those things typically work. But I'm down to do some like just like kind of for fun live stream, mock drafts and things like that. Maybe we can review some other people's mock drafts. If you guys have like people that you have a lot of respect for in the draft community, I'd be open to doing those things on stream just to kind of talk through some different team building philosophies. Just on the way out, guys, if you guys could do me a favor, just before you close out, if you guys could just like the video, just helps get this thing out there to as many people as possible. Just a quick reminder, if you want even more content from me, consider becoming a channel member. Obviously doing the Yins No Ball pods and things like that have been a huge it's been awesome, like podding with John throughout this whole process. And then also like I'm planning on doing some more like all 22 like film breakdowns and things like that. I'm thinking about streaming tomorrow or Sunday, excuse me, like maybe like Sunday around like noon my time, like noon Eastern, and maybe doing either Cowboys offense again, like we did last weekend, where we just went through a full game of like McCarthy's offense, kind of talked through the good, the bad, everything like that. I'm thinking about we either do that again, we can choose another game, or we can do Graham's defense, whatever you guys want to do. I'm open to whatever. So it feels like that was pretty well received. It seemed like you guys liked that, and it worked out better than the last time we tried to do it, just because of some of the upgrades that I've kind of made on my end that are hopefully going to continue pay some dividends. But yeah, all of that stuff is on the table. So if you want more content, cool. If everybody's financial situation is different, so no worries. If you don't want to spend the $4 or whatever, there will be plenty of content for me coming forward. I already said, like, I'm writing about some different things for SteelersNow.com this weekend. There'll be a mock draft like early, probably Monday, Tuesday for the site. And then I would like to do some other like draft content next week at some point, like on the channel. So like maybe like it's like a Thursday, Friday thing. I'm not sure if we'll go live next week or not, but I'll keep you guys posted. Of course, like if you have notifications on, that's always the best thing to get notified, like when the videos go live or when I go live. But also like you can turn notifications on for like the posts. I'm going to try, I've said this multiple times, but I'm going to try to use the post feature on YouTube just to kind of keep you guys updated on like what to expect content wise. I know it's not always like super accurate because like with everything I got going on with work and my kids and like, just the hours that I have to put in, it's sometimes the schedule gets a little bit wonky. So just, there will be plenty of content. It just may not be every bit as accurate of like when I say it's going to be out, but I'm doing my best over here, I promise. But again, I appreciate the continued support, guys. Thank you guys so much. It's Friday, so luckily for you guys, y'all got a full weekend ahead of you. Stay safe and enjoy time with friends and family. So I will talk to you guys very soon. Peace and love.